Good afternoon, everybody. I'm resuming chapter 4, and I read the first 3 chapters, but that was about maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I got sick and I couldn't really talk well, so I decided to leave my readings until I got better. But here I am, and I want to continue my readings on my memoir. It comes in hardcover and it comes in soft cover. It's also on Kindle. Uh, for some reason, people been complaining to me that the hardcover is taking a month to get to their home. I don't know what the issue is. Amazon never gave me a good answer. But Amazon usually ships within a few days. I mean, the soft cover, ships within a few days. So bear that in mind. Plus, it's cheaper. Now, I'm going to start where I was stationed at Fort Hood, Texas. My first wife just notified me she wanted a divorce. I just completed recruiting school, and I had to drive to first to New York to drop off my daughter because I gained custody of her temporarily anyway, and then drive to Chicago Recruiting Command. That's where my new assignment was. So I'm going to start from the point where I'm leaving with my daughter. At the time, she was about 4 years old. Now, I want to believe that a road trip was going to be a piece of cake. It was the road trip to hell. For starters, my car was old and not in tip-top shape. I had an overheating problem. My driver's side window did not close all the way. My heater did not work well. My windshield wipers quit working, and it was winter. Another thing you have to consider was the fact I felt like a failure in my marriage. I was depressed, being a bad husband, and that fact will also translate to me that I was also a bad dad. Now, I have a 4-year-old girl in the backseat making a road trip equivalent to driving through half the country. I could only imagine what was going through my little girl's mind. She was probably confused about why I am on this long trip and where is my mommy. Now, this is where the fun starts. Remember, this is a 3-day trip. I had no money for hotels. I planned to drive as much as possible and stop in rest stops to get a few hours sleep. My car started overheating. I had to keep stopping to let the car cool off. I had no water to put in the radiator. I had very little money. I had no choice. I exited the next town and started looking for a mechanic. The mechanic told me I had a radiator leak and he also replaced the thermostat. I paid him in cash, and so I head off again, heading east. Now, I had very little money, so I had to stop for fast food and munchies to keep our bellies full. I lived on coffee so I can stay awake. During this whole trip, Terry was the real trooper. She was a tough little girl that hardly complained. But I believe that as in this long trip, if she would start saying, "Are we there yet?" I would have gone nuts. So I continue my driving to Texas, Arkansas, and Tennessee. Everything's fine. The car was a little cold because of the partially open window. At least the heater started working because of the replaced thermostat. I would drive until 2 to 3 in the morning. Then I would stop at a rest stop and sleep until sunlight. Then we were on the road again. Just like the country song by Willie Nelson, "On the Road Again." Laugh out loud. Everything was fine until I arrived in Virginia. Terry was, I said, like a real trooper. Not once did I recall she asked for her mom, as per my memory. Then it started snowing. It was getting dark, and I was tired and concentrating on the road. Now remember that my windshield wipers quit working for me. I had a hard time trying to see the road. Terry all this time did not say anything. I am not sure she knew the danger of the situation. I opened the half-open window low enough so I was able to get a hold of the windshield wipers and manually moved them to clear the snow that was falling on my windshield. The car started to get cold, and so were my hands. Now Terry started complaining that she was cold. I would continue this process of removing the snow. Then it started to snow hard. It became a full-blown blizzard. I was almost at the Pennsylvania border. Lucky for me, I saw a sign that a rest stop was only a few miles away. I finally reached the rest stop and attempted to exit the highway. The road was not plowed and there was nothing but pure snow on the entrance to the rest stop. Then my luck changed. Not that my luck changed for the good, but it actually got worse. I got stuck. I wasn't moving. Now the best way to get out of the snow is to rock the car back and forth, meaning I will put it in reverse, then shift it to drive, moving the car back and forth. But I was driving an old 1958 Chevrolet. I tried for a few minutes and realized that I was stuck for good. So I got out of the car and continued to unstrap Terry from her car seat. I left the car and grabbed Terry's hand and continued to walk through the rest area through the snow. Barely had enough money for food and gas to arrive in New York, which is another day's ride. But God is good. What do I see in the rest area? I recognize a priest by the white collar that they wear. God will put the right people in your path if you only trust Him and have faith. So after we used the bathroom, I approached the priest and explained my situation. He immediately gave me $40, which was a lot of money back then. He gave me his address and told me that I can send him a check there. I had told him when I approached that I will pay him back. Thank you, Jesus. So I went to the payphone and looked through the yellow pages and started looking for tow trucks in the area. Most young people don't even know what public payphones are, or for that matter, the white pages or the yellow pages. In those days, the telephone companies will put your name and address in a public phone book, and the same for a business. Then for dinner, we had munchies and soda. Don't judge. I barely had enough money for gas and tolls. So the tow truck arrived and got my car out. I paid him and we slowly continued on our journey. I got to the Pennsylvania border. Now it was still snowing hard. This meeting with the priest, was God sent and changed my luck. Then out of nowhere, Murphy shows up. So who is Murphy? For practical purpose, I will call him Mr. Murphy's Law. Everyone has met this dude. All through your life, you meet this guy over and over. Murphy's Law states, if anything can go wrong, it will. And it did. I kept taking the snow out of the windshield with my freezing hands. I did have gloves, but they were already soaking wet and useless. I continued like this for just a few miles when all of a sudden my car just stopped. My car was still on, but it would not move. Apparently, all that rocking, moving my car, trying to free myself in the snow, damaged my transmission. But I'm not a quitter. The soldier in me kicked in. I immediately realized the danger we were in. I was stuck on the right lane of the highway. I put my emergency flashers and got Terry out of the car. I scanned the area I was in. Lucky for me, my car was stuck under an underpass, and I noticed a flower shop on the other side of the highway. So I grabbed Terry's hand and climbed the hill to get to the top of the underpass so I can safely walk across the highway. Now, poor Terry was crying and complaining she was cold. I comforted her the best I can and pointed to where we were going to try to calm her down. I got to the flower shop and God was with me again. They were in the process of closing. I explained the situation to them and they proceeded to call a tow truck for me. Again, I knew I did not have enough money for a tow truck. I had to depend on my selling skills to get these services for free at the moment. The tow truck arrived, and again I proceeded with my selling skills. I convinced him to drop my car at a mechanic shop and take Terry and me to a motel. At the motel, I again explained the story to the motel owner and convinced him to let me sleep the night with a promise to pay him the next day. I used his phone to call my sister and asked if she could wire me some money. I explained everything that happened to us. The next day, we ate candy for breakfast. Again, don't judge. We walked a few blocks to the Western Union to pick up the money. We stopped at a diner and ate real food. I then proceeded to go to the motel to pick up our luggage and pay for the room. When all was said and done, we walked to the Greyhound bus station and bought a bus ticket to New York City. The ride was good and was grateful for all the good luck I was getting. Apparently, Mr. Murphy has left town to return another day. When I arrived in the city, we proceeded to take the subway to the Lower East Side. We walked from the subway with bags to my sister's house, where she lived in the Baruch projects. We got to the apartment and everyone was there. My sister, her husband, Debbie, Monica, and Mario Jr. I was exhausted. I did not feel like talking. Suni, my sister, then asked, "What happened?" I had a stupid reply and said, "What do you think?" Remember, I was tired and delirious. Later that night after dinner, I explained everything from the time I left Texas until my arrival. That's not the end of this chapter. There's some more to it. But that's it in a nutshell for chapter 4. How I wound up in the recruiting command, and later I'll show how I met my wife, Maria. My previous chapter about Maria, I briefly talked about that. But you could get my book if you want to know about my story, my destiny. And like I said, it comes in Kindle soft cover and hardcover. What I noticed right now as I was reading this, what I didn't explain on this particular chapter, when I was stuck at the rest stop, the tow truck that I got when the priest gave me the $40 was to pull me out of the area that I was in, and so I could get my car started again. I mean, it didn't break down, so I was able to get my car started to get back on the highway. I should have put that in the book, and I realized my mistake, so I apologize for that, because maybe some of you might be wondering, the guy said he was stuck, and how is he driving again back to heading towards New York City? Anyway, God bless everybody. This chapter was a little long, and I hope that you would go ahead and take the time to buy it. And importantly, I'm going to put this on my YouTube channel, which I always promote different things, but I'm promoting my book now. So like and subscribe, and thank you. You have a good day. God bless.